Today on Meanbrews, we're covering Kolsch, that refreshing lager-like ale from Germany. Let's get right into the data. I have 31 winning Kolsch recipes. 4 were best of show, 21 golds, 1 silver, and 3 of them were just award winning. The style overview, it's BJCP Style 5B, a clean, crisp, delicately balanced beer with usually a very subtle fruit and hop character. Fruit is from the esters. Subdued maltiness throughout leads into a pleasantly well-attenuated and refreshing finish. Freshness makes a huge difference with this beer, as the delicate character can fade quickly with age. Style stability, we're pretty low on the changes with style over time, and between the recipes, we're very low between recipe to recipe. The little bit of evolution we do see, I will share in this presentation. Original gravity ranged from 1.042 to 1.051 on here on the chart, with an average of 1.048, pretty much within the BJCP range. IBUs was a big range between 4 IBUs and 38. The mean was right on the average, 23 for BJCP. I'm going to stick to that with my recipe. You are seeing a shift on the IBUs a little bit. This is one area of evolution from right around 19 to right around 25 IBUs. I call this the IPA effect. All the IPAs that our palates are used to are making us less sensitive to hops, and most of the non-malt or non-hoppy beer styles are seeing shifts in IBUs. I will say that when I take out the high-low, this gets a little bit more flat, but we're still around 25 IBUs as the trend. The colors on the lighter end of the range, the BJCP ranges from 3.5 to 5 SRM. The styles had come in at 2 to 4.5 with an average of 3.5 right at the bottom end of the BJCP range. Shoot for the lighter end of this spectrum, and I think you'll do fine. Average malt bill, 98.3% base malt, just a light touch of crystal, 1.5%, and even lighter touch of toasted malts at 0.1%. I'm going to stick to these proportions in my recipe. Base malts, we had between about 72 and 100% German Pilsner malts. 100% of the recipes that reported using a German Pilsner malt. The average was at 89% of the grist. 3 other base malts used were German wheat. 60% of the recipes used a German wheat malt at an average of 7.8% of the grist. 37% of the recipes used a German Vienna malt at an average of 8.1% of the grist. And 23% of the recipes used a Munich malt at an average of 8% of the grist. I will probably use all 3 of these, Pilsner, wheat, and Vienna, in my recipe at the end. Crystal malts, not a lot used. The highest was 20% Carapils / Carafoam or Dextrin malt at an average of 5.4% of the grist. Next most prominent was Cara Vienna. 17% of the recipes used a Cara Vienna at an average of 3% of the grist. A couple recipes use a toasted malt, honey malt at about 2.75%, and biscuit malt at a little above 1% of the grist. I'm not going to recommend using a toasted malt for this recipe. For bittering hops, the most prominent bittering hop used was Haller Mittelfrüh. 39% of the recipes used a Haller Mittelfrüh. 19% used Tet or a Hersbrucker, and then a slew of other German or American style bittering hops were used. Flavor hops, Tet was the most common at 13%, then Haller and Hersbrucker both at 10%, and then some others. For aroma hops, Tettnang again, 13% of the recipes used Tet for aroma hop, Hersbrucker at 10%, and then some other hops here were used in 2 recipes here or 1 recipe for each one of these. For the rate of hop additions, 45% of the recipes used a flavor hop, which is the blue curve here, at an average rate of 0.11 ounce per gallon. 52% of the recipes used a aroma hop at an average of the same 0.011 ounce per gallon. When you combine these, I'm just going to use one late hop addition in my recipe. 70% of the recipes use some form of late hop addition at an average rate of, when you combine both the flavor and aroma hops, an average of 0.15 ounces per gallon. So I'm going to shoot for this target here. When you look at the change in aroma hops quantity over time, seeing an increase in the quantity is quite substantial. Nonlinear curve here between 0.03 ounces per gallon up to about 0.15 is the trend. A lot of recent ones are going way up here, 0.15 to 0.25, but I'm going to stick with the 0.15 for my hop addition for aroma hops. Total lead charge, 0.05 up to 0.20. And what I said was wrong. I'm going to shoot for 0.20 because I'm doing one hop addition in my recipe, just to try to match this trend of what's winning nowadays. The mash types, we had about a third use step mash, and the majority used the single infusion mash. For the mash rest, we had three that showed up in the recipes. The protein rest, 23% of the recipes did a protein rest, and an average of that number is wrong. It's 128.5 or 53.6 Celsius for an average duration of 13 minutes. Beta rest was right at 145 or 62.8 Celsius for around 37 minutes. Only about 20% of the recipes did a beta rest. 100% of the recipes did an alpha rest at an average of 151 Fahrenheit or 66.1 Celsius for an average of 57 minutes. The boil duration, again, between 60 and 90 was the most common with an average of 83. I'm going to do a 90-minute boil just to draw off any potential for DMS in this beer. With the yeast used, the most prominent was White Lab 029. Some say it's Früh, some say it's a small brew pub in Köln. If you know what it is, please put it in the comments where this strain comes from. I've seen it reported multiple places. The next most common, 30% of the recipes used Yeast 2565, which is this brewery or brew pub. Other yeast used were lager yeast, White Labs 830. I think there were a couple of lager yeasts used here. Yes, this Anchor lager strain. The alt beer yeast, K97, WLP 036 or Yeast 1007. Lagering Kolsch, I think it's a newer strain, was used in one recipe, and Jamil's recipe used Brewtech CL450 Kolsch yeast. He swore by it, but you can't get this anymore. If anyone has this, be interested in trying it out. So please share in the comments if you have a strain or this bank somewhere, we can try it out. Water chemistry, quite a few reported water chemistry. Calcium was anywhere between 20 and 80 with an average right at 50. Magnesium was between 0 and 12 with an average of about 6. Sodium, 0 and right at 58 with an average of 20. Sulfate was anywhere between about 5 and 95 with an average of about 62. And chlorides was anywhere between about 18 and 90 with an average of about 53. We are seeing a shift from in the sulfate to chloride ratio. The parts per million here on the left and the dates. The blue curve is the sulfate, which is going from about 40 to about 80, and the chlorides are going from about 70 to about 40. This is showcasing the hops more than the malts. Really interesting to see this, and I think it's indicative of, again, that IBU or IPA shift we're seeing. Tell me what you think about this. What are your thoughts on why we're seeing evolution here and in the IBUs and in the hop rate? Really like to get your thoughts on that. Fermentation temperature. The lager strain was down here. Average temperature is right at 60, so I'm going to stick with that with my recipe. Went as high as 66, which is still low for an ale. Actually, right in the middle for an ale, but I'm going to shoot for the mean for this style. Other variables, the average carbonation volume was right at 2.5, and the average mash pH was 5.33. Not a big variation on those. All right, on to the recipe. That's a quick one. I'm going to use about 90% Pilsner malt, about 5% wheat malt, and about 3% Vienna malt. These are right on the means that we had from our slides before. And I'm going to use a little bit of Carafoam, 1.7% Carafoam from Weyermann. I'm going to bitter with about 16 IBUs of Howler in my 90-minute boil. And I am going to add 2 hop additions, 0.11 ounce per gallon of Tet at 15 and 0.15 ounce per gallon of Tet at 5 minutes. So I did lie before. I'm not doing 1. I'm doing 2 hop additions, 2 late hop additions. And I'm going to stick with the White Lab 029. I think that has proven to produce the best Kolsch based upon the recipes that are winning. My original gravity, I'm shooting for 1.048 and about 23 IBUs. In my water chemistry, I'm going with the evolution here, 50 parts per million calcium, negligible sodium and magnesium. Keep those low. Sulfate's about 80 parts per million and chloride's about 40. I'm going to adjust my mash to 5.3, either using an acid malt or probably lactic acid. And I'm going to infusion mash at 150 Fahrenheit or 65.6 Celsius for right at 60 minutes. I'm going to mash out and sparge and boil for 90 minutes. I want to drive that DMS off. It's pretty well shown in the data that a lot of people are winning with 90-minute boils, so I think it's pretty essential here. I'm going to chill to 60 Fahrenheit or 15.6 Celsius and oxygenate and pitch a big amount of yeast. Probably make a big starter, 2-liter starter for a 5-gallon batch. Excuse me. I'll ferment at 60 and rise about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit as the fermentation tails off. And then I'll cold crash kegger bottle to about 2.5 volumes of CO2. Okay, that's it. Now, for next week, I think I'm just going to do Doppelbock. I've had a friend of mine that's been requesting it since day one, so we're going to go ahead and just pick Doppelbock and share it. I've got a good recipe that's won some gold medals before, so I'm happy to share my recipe as well as others. Good data set, so looking forward to see you then. If you haven't yet, please subscribe and hit that little notification icon there to get notifications when new videos come up. Until next week, see ya. Bye-bye.